大怪盗アルセーヌ・ルパンが残した不思議な宝物ルパンコレクションがギャングラーに奪われた。失ったものを取り戻すために戦う怪盗、世界の平和を守るために戦う警察、君はどっちを応援する？
Hello and welcome to LupinRecap vs. PatReview, the podcast that's stirring up a storm. I am your host, Lokamasi, and with me is my lovely co-host, Fefner Masamune.
Alright, we're here, just sitting in the call. I want you to show me if you can get far. Step on the gas, Loka.
And today, we are talking about episode 30 of Lupin Ranger vs. Pat Ranger. By the way, I wanted to point out that I found another Lupot podcast, and their first episode is also titled The Podcast That's Stirring Up a Storm.
Alright, did we at least get ours up first? Did we get the low-hanging fruit earlier?
I say it's a really easy joke to make, but I still think we can sue them. And I think they started theirs sooner because I'm pretty sure they're done with the show.
Well, dang.
Anyways, we're on episode 30, and that's divisible by 5, so it's time for more rankings. So I'll go first. I'll count down, as usual, so at the bottom.
Yep.
Number 7, we have Sakia, surprising no one. He's, like I said, he's pretty much going to stay there.
Yep.
6 is Toma. Toma's not done anything bad, but he's also just... It's almost like deceptive how much development he got so quickly early on.
You know, I feel like he's progressed, sort of. Like, he feels different at this point, but also we haven't had any major episodes about him, other than, you know, one where he didn't progress that much, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's been all around it, basically.
Number 5 is Tsukasa. She's a pretty good character, but all the other characters are so good that she very rarely cracks the top half for me. Mm-hmm. Number 4 is Umika. She's still great. And then just the top 3, because of course it's the 6th Ranger and the 2 Red Rangers end up being the best for me. But number 3 we have Noel. He's still really interesting, and I do appreciate that he's not dominating the show. He's still more likely to be important than any other non-red character.
Mm-hmm.
But I do appreciate that it's not just the Noel show.
Yeah.
Because I think I mentioned this before, but that was a problem with, I think, Z Ranger and definitely original Power Rangers. To the point where the actor that played the Green Ranger is still involved in the franchise today and still occasionally plays a Ranger. People really like Tommy Oliver, and to this day.
Man, that's really
It's a little nuts. He's 30-something years old and still occasionally plays a Power Ranger.
He steals the show so hard that he just steals different shows.
Number 2, I have Keiichiro. Number 1 is Kairi, primarily for reasons we will discuss in this episode.
Alright, so...
This is the episode I've been hinting at for a long time that made me like Kairi and Keiichiro a lot. And it's the episode that made me think I should do a podcast. Because I could watch this with someone, but no, I kind of want to just talk about every episode.
Alright, so my bottom 3 is the same. Saki has not gotten much of anything. Hasn't really done anything terrible recently, but also, you know, everyone else. Tuma's not gotten much. Tsukasa also hasn't gotten much, unfortunately. She had a really good episode a while back, but that was with Giwi, so, you know. That was before episode 25. And then, my number 4 is Noel, because I still like the dynamic he has with both teams, but also it feels like he's gone a bit static on that, because we've had several episodes in a row where I've been like, Okay, well, he's kind of given the Pat Rangers the shaft again. What are the consequences? And they sort of manifest in this episode, but like not quite as much as I think I'd like. Number 3 is Kyrie, because he's getting some good development, and I feel he's on, the cusp of like some really good episodes. But that's down the line. Number 2 is Umika, because, I really liked her birthday episode, even though it wasn't about her. I do sort of like, I do like the fact that we got to see a lot of what other people think of her. But, I'd also like more Umika episodes too, as I said. And number 1 is Kaiichiro, because, man, Kaiichiro's always good. What a good boy. Just real earnest, real dedicated to helping people, and also he just really hates those Lupin Rangers.
It's amazing, because if you just watch the first episode, you would think, alright, now I know everything about Keiichiro's character. In fact, I think I said that during our first podcast episode.
Yep, he's the mad guy. He's just going to be the mad guy forever.
But no. He's actually very complex. Well, maybe complex isn't the right word. He is pretty reducible as far as, personality traits go, but there is more to him than just being mad and shouting.
Yeah, he's got 2 modes. He's got good leader mode, and he's got damn you Lupin Rangers mode.
He's got Lupin Rangers rage, and the children must be safe. And those are kind of his 2 operating modes. So yeah, I was just a little relieved every time we don't have the exact same list.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was worried that was just going to be everything from here on in.
I feel like Noel's actually like the major variation. Which is weird, because Noel rules, but also I think I've ended up typically rating him lower than you do.
I don't know, I guess I'm just more easily impressed by those backflips.
I mean, you can't deny those backflips are amazing.
But yeah, this is also sort of the point where my list is going to be fairly static.
Yeah, we just finished the major fight back at episode 25, and stuff's been happening, but a little bit slowly.
Yeah, and I'll say I've returned to the conceit of this podcast where I've seen everything and Fefner hasn't by actually finishing the show. So I can say my list probably isn't going to change very much.
Alright, well, good to know for the future.
It will change. I will say it will change, but it's not going to change a lot and it's not going to change often.
Whoa, you mean Saki is going to shoot all the way up to the top now?
But now let's talk about the actual episode 30.
Episode 30, Vacation for 2. We open at the police HQ where Kaiichiro is filling out paperwork. Noel walks in as Kaiichiro...
Thrilling start.
Noel walks in as Kaiichiro asks Sakia to cover everything. Everyone looks surprised when Noel speaks up, and they try to act casually as they tell him that Kaiichiro is just going on vacation, and they're not suspicious at all.
I mean, everyone in this room had a heart attack when you opened that door, but we're not suspicious. We're just jittery.
We're all just facing towards you and smiling, Noel. Go back to bed, Noel.
Except the smile, Noel.
The next day, Kaiichiro gets off a train and stretches. He texts somebody that he's at the station, but he's interrupted by a familiar voice. Behind him is Kairi, who follows, by which I mean chases, Kaiichiro, saying that he's also on vacation at the hot springs. Kairi insists that they hang out together and says, "It's not like you're here for work." Kaiichiro, of course, reacts. We then flash back to Noel Juror, who's positive that Kaiichiro wouldn't take a break, and that the cops are hiding something from him. He asks Kairi to look into what Kaiichiro is doing, and we return to the present, where Kairi is palling around with Kaiichiro, straight into the opening sequence.
I want to say a couple of things about that scene. First, I really appreciate Kairi's aggressive friendliness. It's a good setup for things that will happen later in this episode. But I've also learned that, like I mentioned, Asai Ito was the youngest actor, and apparently one of the other actors that acted most as his mentor was Kosei Yuki, Keiichiro's actor.
Neat.
So I just really like that they're actually good friends offset. Apparently they're in each other's like Instagram photos all the time.
Oh my god, that rules.
Also, I know that Asai Ito dyed his hair for the role, because you can tell just looking at the hair, it's dyed. It's really weird to see him with darker hair, though.
Oh yeah, that would be really weird. I don't think I could recognize him.
Yeah, like I have to alright, well there's Keiichiro. I think that's Kairi?
Yeah, like I'd probably get the face, but man, the hair would just throw me way off.
Hold on, can you make a really dumb face? Then I'll know if you're Kairi. I also wanted to say, during that flashback scene, I really liked just the way that they pull up old episodes.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a recap episode, but they still get those scenes in.
But the little narration over the old clips makes it feel, I don't know, like an actual memory.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they just played the clips sound and all, that wouldn't have been good. But if they just had a character say, like, oh, there was that time Keiichiro ran out on a girl to go to work, it wouldn't be as good. It wouldn't feel as bad as, say, just playing the clip sound and all. But I just really like the visuals plus narration style.
Yeah. So we return to Hell, where the usual suspects are talking about a gangler named Kenkus, who's made some moves. Ghosh seems mortified at whatever he's doing, while Destra mentions that he gave Kenkus the perfect piece of the collection for his situation, whatever that means. DeGranio seems pretty neutral on this guy. He just says he's gonna wait and see how it plays out.
Let me guess, he doesn't care.
I mean, DeGranio will always show at least a little bit of interest. But even this is just like, just I'll see what he does. Maybe he'll impress me, who knows?
I mean, since Pinguino died, I do need to find a new Pinguino. Somebody has to be on the bottom now, and I don't know who it is anymore.
There's that one toothbrush guy, but he's dead too. Back in Meat World, Kairi and Kaiichiro are being served food. Kairi digs in before Kaiichiro can even give thanks for the food. Kairi also eats one of the foods in front of Kaiichiro when he remarks how tasty it is, and the two just sort of go back and forth like that for a while. We then cut to the two at a shooting gallery. Kaiichiro gets a pretty good shot, but Kairi shows him up by banking a shot off several targets, because as we know, Kairi is the best at violence. We then cut to another place where they're eating. After that, we see the two walking down the streets. Kairi asks Kaiichiro if he's decided on a hot spring, which he hasn't, but before he can think of an excuse, he sees something else and runs off. Said thing is a young girl. He approaches her, and initially she's terrified of him. But Kairi forces Kaiichiro to make a funny face, thus rendering him somehow less scary to this child. Well, it's less the face, which isn't funny so much as it is a little bit worrying, and more the following argument between the two that convinces the girl to trust them.
The little stand-up routine they have with each other. I really like that scene, because you maybe we're going to mention this here in a second, but after they get the girl to smile and laugh, they look at her and then look at each other. Almost like it was like they'd planned it.
Yeah, they rule.
It is a nice little detail character moment. I'm not sure what to call it, but I like it.
Facial expression, I guess.
Mhm.
They just do really good expressions on this show.
Yeah.
We cut to a police box where Kaichiro is telling the other authorities, that the girl had dropped her hairpin and became lost when she tried to go look for it. She mentions she had bought it yesterday, and Kaichiro notices that, since she has twin tails, she still has one hairpin, a small pink strawberry-shaped one. Kaichiro offers to go look for it and tells Kairi to sit tight. It's Kairi, so he doesn't, though he does have some quick flashbacks of his brother. Elsewhere, Kaichiro is frantically searching for the hairpin. Kairi, on his own search, spots the hairpins on sale, which he'd seen earlier. We cut back near the police box as Kairi is smiling with a new hairpin in hand, just in time to see the girl reunited with her parents. However, Kaichiro starts running in past him, having found the original hairpin. Kairi's expression sours, and he hides the pin in his clenched fist, as the girl and her parents thank Kaichiro.
I love this scene so much. Just the fact that Kairi's like, alright, I'm going to take time out of my day to be a nice person, buy this girl her hairpin with my own money, and then this goddamn cop just scoured the earth until he found the actual hairpin that she lost.
Didn't even need detective mode to do it, just looked under every single crevice he possibly could.
I also wanted to point out when Keiichiro was running to the family with the hairpin, he says, "I've got your treasure."
Yep.
So just the guy who just like reaches out and trips him, like, that's my line, asshole.
Kaichiro secretly knew that she was secretly a Lupin fan, so he decided to appeal to her like that, because he's learned his lesson.
Oh, that's really nice, though. He really would be putting her ahead of him in that situation. That would be really cool. But also the way that Kairi clenches the hairpin looks almost exactly like the way he clenches scissors when he gets that VS vehicle.
Hairpin!
It's sort of the way of, like, there's only so many ways you can film a scene like that, but I think that because it looks so similar, it was probably on purpose to, like, remind us of that scene.
We cut back to Police HQ, where the officers are watching footage of a Gangler doing something. He hasn't caused any damage. He just sort of appears on buildings every now and then, doing a jig or something.
He's just standing there.
Menacingly! Tsukasa still thinks they should be on guard. Noelle suggests that they call Kaichiro so he can come back and help them, but everyone else in the office refutes him, saying that Kaichiro deserves a vacation, and that's all that's going on. Once again, they are acting suspicious.
I know what you're talking about. Keiichiro's never worked here. Who's Keiichiro? Says Sakia.
Noelle doesn't seem convinced, but he goes along with it. I mean, what else are you gonna do? We cut back to Kusakawa, where Kairi and Kaichiro are crossing a bridge. Kaichiro notes that Kairi's gotten quiet. After some insistence that something's wrong, Kairi tells Kaichiro that one time his brother took him out to play. But like this situation, they'd come across a young girl who had gotten lost, so Kairi's brother took the time to escort the girl to a police box. At the time, Kairi was jealous that his brother's time was being taken up by someone else. Kairi acknowledges his brother is selfless and how much of a fucker he himself is. But Kaichiro assures him that that's not true. After all, Kairi saw him on his own and decided to keep him company. Which would be a nice thing to say if Kairi weren't here on false pretenses.
I know. God. I know I've already said how much I love one scene, but I also really love this scene.
It's really good.
It's also like really just interesting to have, you know, a Red Ranger team leader that really just genuinely hates himself this much.
Yep.
And the first attempt we get at someone trying to go like, no, you're actually a good person is demonstrably not true.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you actually are that bad, Kyrie. Sorry.
You're a good person. You're helping me. No, I'm not.
What I do want to see, though, is the alternate version of the scene where Kyrie says, oh, I'm just bummed out because I tried to replace that hairpin and now I'm out, 200 yen or whatever. And then Keiichiro tries to, like, reimburse him.
Yep.
He's just like, you're making me feel even worse. I will throw you off this bridge. Stop doing this to me.
Kyrie then flashes back to his brother coming back and telling young Kyrie that he's not a jerk. He was patient and he waited for him to be done. So we get some nice parallels between Kyrie's brother and Keiichiro, but again, false pretenses this time.
It's really interesting because, like, as much fun as it is to watch the Lupin Rangers, they try and sell the idea, and I think this scene does the best of it so far. It's not fun to be a Lupin Ranger.
Yeah, no. Kyrie especially.
Yeah, because the audience can sort of see there's not really much of a difference between the two teams, really. But Kyrie really is attached to this idea that being a Phantom Thief makes him a worse person.
Mm-hmm. Keiichiro is about to go over to Kyrie, but he receives a text from whoever he's been talking to. It tells Keiichiro to meet them at Mary Pier Warehouse 2 and to come alone. Not suspicious at all. Keiichiro apologizes and tells Kyrie that a relative texted him before he runs off. Kyrie continues looking sad and says that he wished he believed that too. Probably the good person thing, not the relative. That he just doesn't even want to believe that. He just knows that's a lie. Elsewhere, the Gangler of the day is laughing and doing something that involves his collection power. It glows green. He also mentions spraying something as well. But once he's finished with whatever it is he's doing, he turns around and then he's shot several times. Saki and Tsukasa run in, but suddenly there's an explosion between the two of them. But once it clears, they've kaisatsu changed. At the warehouse where Keiichiro's perfectly legitimate business transaction is going down, Keiichiro meets up with the not Yakuza. Keiichiro reveals the bag he's been carrying has a lot of money in it. We also see Red sneak into the walkway above. Keiichiro asks the not Yakuza to see the thing, and the not Yakuza boss laughs, but has his assistant show him a small fire truck, which is, of course, a Versus vehicle. Unfortunately, though, it turns out this was an ambush, and several goons emerge and surround Keiichiro. The man's assistant charges in and tries for the first punch, but Keiichiro starts dodging. A normal person fight happens, and Keiichiro defeats all of the not Yakuza handily.
I was gonna say my note for the scene is just kick, Ichiro. Something about this is that it reminds me that it's not important that your fiction be realistic, but it's important that you convince your audience that it's realistic or at least makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because in real life, fighting several people with lead pipes is a bad idea, but during the fight, most of the time they just sort of hit each other and can't really land a hit on Keiichiro. And that seems believable to me. Because, yeah, you're just a jackass swinging a pipe. Of course you're just going to hit your idiot friend and not the guy you're trying to hit.
Yeah, who happens to be a super cop.
Yeah, a literal superhero. Just one last thing. You were going to talk about how he beats the last guy before going to the mob boss. He just yells at him.
Yeah.
And the sound guy actually put in like a tiger yelling or a lion roaring or something at the same time. It's great.
Keiichiro notes that they're not ganglars, which the boss responds to by saying that Keiichiro's not a museum owner. But since they're not...
Him being a museum owner would actually give him a reason to hate the Lupin Rangers. He keeps accidentally putting pieces of the Lupin collection in his museum. And the Lupin Rangers keep breaking in to steal it.
I keep putting this one clock behind this glass case, and every day you just pick it up, and then the fucking Pat Rangers come in and start shooting, and then there's just chaos in this museum because there's Potamen everywhere. I just want to put these things on display, but no, I can't.
You all don't clean up the Potamen. I have to.
Do you know how hard it is to dispose of Potamen? They don't disintegrate when they die. And let me tell you, looks really suspect when you have to just shove several bodies into a nearby garbage can.
There's just like a pile of Potamen under like a floor mat or a rug.
He's just taken to making displays with them.
It's like a really dumb version of House of Wax.
But since they're not Ganglars, Kaitro's just going to normal arrest them. We also get a flashback to the scene that happened before the start of the episode, where Jim Carter is telling the cops about this man, who was connected to those other guys they normal arrested back in episode 26. Since they weren't sure if he was a Gangler or not, they decided to have Kaitro go and investigate, and also they mention that they need to keep the plan a secret from Noel. Back in the present, Kaitro makes his way to the briefcase to retrieve the fire truck after tying up the not Yakuza. Up above, Red realizes they didn't tell Noel, so they could keep the collection piece. So, this isn't like the biggest result from Noel not exactly being the best partner to the police, but it's certainly something.
Yeah.
They just out and out do not trust him.
Yeah, it does like make both teams less effective because 25 they came together to work together and now they're back at each other's throats.
Yep. And yeah, they've just seen a few times in these past few episodes, Noel and these trigger machines cannot be trusted. But Red's not having that, so he throws his calling card and swoops in to grab the new Versus vehicle. Kaitro goes in for a punch before he even bothers Kaisatsu changing, but as soon as he does, Red also Kaito changes as well, and they just start going at it. I do really like the choreography in this scene. It's real good.
Yeah, at some point I want to make like a supercut of the Red fights.
Yep.
And just watch them all back to back to see how they change. Because I know they do, I'm just not really sure exactly how, and it would probably be a lot more obvious if I just sat down and watched all of them.
Well, this one it's fairly obvious because,
yeah, this one's obvious.
This time around, Ichigo's actually getting the upper hand over Red in this one.
Yeah, Kyrie's having an impressive episode.
Yeah, he's super sluggish, and this part of the fight pretty much ends when Red tries to get away by grappling, and then just gets shot several times. Ichigo also mentions that fact because he's also realized that he hasn't had the tar kicked out of him by this point.
You normally kick my ass. What's going on? Hurt me more, Lupin Red.
Red says that he just wants to leave since he's already claimed the treasure. And I really love how these lines are divided because it just starts with Red going like, I just want to get out of here. I'm just kind of done. But then he just remembers to be smarmy.
Oh, man.
But then he just remembers to be smarmy. He's like, because I got the collection piece already. And then Ichigo gets real mad. Back at the Ganglar fight, Tsukasa realizes that using their guns is causing small explosions, so they need to melee this one. The other two Phantom Thieves enter and also notice that the Pat Ranger's weapons seem to be backfiring. Noel saunters in and Kaito changes with blue and yellow, and they leap in to beat up Kankus with their swords. During the fight, Blue enters Kanku's safe combination, 9-3-1, and retrieves La Vie en Rose. But the moment he does, a sickly green filter covers the screen. Everyone looks about, and after a moment, they begin choking. That's right, everyone. This Ganglar was a fart joke all along. The collection piece hid the stench, so while it was causing explosions, nobody could tell what was actually going on. Fighting happens, much to everyone's displeasure, and the Rangers can't get the upper hand because the smell is so terrible. Back in hell, even the Ganglar gang is having a bad time, because apparently they can smell that from all the way wherever they are.
In hell.
Destra tells
I'm assuming it's like a sense memory thing of just looking at him reminds them of it. It's that bad.
Yeah.
But I do also like the idea of he just transcends dimensions. Just pictures of this guy also reek.
Destra tells Ghosh to go on out and help him, despite the fact that he's doing really well. Ghosh just goes with it despite the obvious hesitation. She then attempts to enter but is immediately repelled by repulsion. We see her hand emerge from the portal to fire her green big beam at Kanku before she just quits the episode completely.
That's also a really good gag.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised they found so many different ways to do Ghosh entering the scene.
I know. Like, from time to time, she just comes in, does her thing, leaves, but half the time, even when it's the short version, they find some way to make it kind of funny.
Yeah, they also are pretty good with just like different camera angles, good use of the the set.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think we pointed out the one time she showed up on a balcony and shot a safe on the ground level. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. And just in general, I love that her mood does actually affect your entrance.
You can tell the difference between it. And now, my darling little treasure, and now, my darling little treasure, make them feel whatever.
Fucking whatever. Get big, get shot, and die. I do not care about you, Pengi.
I bring you back just so you can die a second time.
I will enjoy watching it. Kanku gets big before he even dies, which is perfect for him because that means that now he can begin blowing up the entire city thanks to the gas he'd sprayed earlier. It's actually a pretty good plan.
Yeah, it upsets me that the extended fart joke Ganglar is one, in one of the best episodes, and two, actually has a well thought out plan.
Yeah. It sucks. X bemoans the fact that they don't have Splash, a Versus vehicle that would be perfect for the job. But Goody wanders in and mentions that it's a fire truck, which gives Sangu the idea to call Kaitro and ask just where the heck he is with that fire truck. Now knowing the situation, Ichigo hesitates. After thinking things through, Ichigo shouts the situation to Red, and that not only will Splash put out the fires, but it would also be faster for Red to reach the site with his own jets. Red emerges from cover and points his gun at Ichigo, but Ichigo tells him to just go, and refuses to fight any further. Red complies and flies off. Once Red reaches the rest of the Rangers, they all activate the Lupin Kaiser. It's the very fast version of it as well. Before Blue equips magic, he and Yellow notice that Red's in a really bad mood. But he snaps out of it and activates Splash. Now equipped with a fire truck and a blimp, the Kaiser sprays the fires out, and then sprays Big Kanku down. Goody tells the group that Splash had been given to a woman that Lupin had a crush on, and asks where Red found it. Red is quite saddened to tell him that it was a gift from the cops. Ex-Emperor then wanders in and starts fighting Kanku for a bit, while the Lupin Kaiser throws out some cards, which then surround Kanku. One card hovers in front of the Kaiser, and then the Kaiser extends Splash into it. A fire hose emerges from each one of the cards and sprays Big Kanku with water until a typhoon appears beneath him and throws him skyward. The Lupin Kaiser then activates its special move, Good Striker Big Poppin' Splash, and with the clench of the Kaiser's fist, the water forms a bubble around Kanku and crushes him to death. Good strikers in a pretty good mood. None of the rest of the Lupin Rangers are, though. Red especially. We then cut to the police HQ that night. Kaichiro is apologizing for giving away the Versus vehicle with a full-on bow, but Hilltop says that it was the right decision because he did minimize casualties. Though Jim mentions that it's surprising that Red did what Kaichiro asked, but Kaichiro responds that he felt that he could trust him. Back at Jure, Umika is playing with the fire truck and notes that Arsene liked to hand over pieces of the collection. Noel tells them that he may have willingly given away pieces of the collection to ensure the power of the entire collection wields when together was never used for evil. Sentence structure was kind of weird in that one. So, Arsene handed over collection pieces to his girlfriend, so the Ganglars didn't get them instead. But that's what I'm going with, personally. Nonetheless, Noel tells Kyrie that he did an excellent job, which Kyrie clearly does not agree with. Nor does he respond to anything. He's just flashbacking to Kaichiro being a good person. We see Kyrie clutching the hairpin from earlier, and he mutters how Kaichiro sounding like him is only making things harder. And that's the end of the episode.
That is the episode, and this is one of my favorite episodes. Alright, so first, as always, let's talk about the Ganglar.
He's a skunk Ganglar. We mentioned that his plan is good.
Oh my god.
How dare he?
His name is Conks. It's an anagram of skunk. Not quite. It's like a sound anagram. And it's with a Japanese accent, so the U's and A's are indistinguishable. But still, it's supposed to sound like skunk. I'm upset. My notes are just what, why, and all caps, but no question mark, just a period.
Yeah, so I don't really want to talk about him much. The show doesn't even really want to focus on him. He didn't even die before he got big.
Yeah, but his plan was, like, very important that it was that specific plan.
He did have the perfect...
Because if he was doing literally anything else, the Pot Rangers would have gotten Trigger Machine Splash. It's not my favorite scene, but I do think it's the scene that makes this episode when Keiichiro gives up the VS vehicle. It's a really good example of the suit actors and character actors coming together to make a really, really good performance.
His gestures are really good, and his shouts are amazing.
Really shaky, really mad, and him screaming "Just go!" Like, I don't really remember like what the exact words are. Like, I don't know how to say "just go" in Japanese, but I will say I remember the emotion. I remember what it sounds like, more or less. It's really, really good.
Oh yeah. Both his gestures and the voice acting are just very strong. I mean that both in quality and in, like, the conveyance of them.
And it's important that scene is like that, because on the other end is Kyrie, who, whether he would or not, would probably say he wouldn't be able to do the same thing. If they were in a situation where the police needed a VS vehicle to save lives, I don't know if Kyrie would even be willing to give that
definitely not.
Vehicle up.
He's not going to give up a collection piece.
Umika would. Umika would. I don't think Toma would either, but it feels different with him.
Like, he's going to be a dick.
It's like Toma's run the calculations. He knows what he's made his decision. He made one decision a while ago, and it's just kept going since then. Kyrie is more like trying to take things as they come. So if that happens, he would have to decide then and
Yep.
there, and it would kill him. And that's really the best thing about this episode, is that up until this point, it's not been super obvious, like, why we should think the Lupin Rangers are worse than the Pot Rangers from a moral perspective. And this is just like, oh, it doesn't matter what the audience thinks. The characters think the Lupin Rangers are morally worse,
Yep.
including the Lupin Rangers. And that's pretty good. The best, like, sometimes it's nice to just take your audience out of something and be like, okay, it doesn't matter what you think. The
Yep.
characters will do the thinking. All right, I tried to make my comments more through the recap, because I've finally been listening to Sex Archie more, and that's what Grant does. So I'm just going to copy him, because he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So, I guess we just transitioned really smoothly off Ganglar talk, and thank goodness for that. Yeah, this is just a really good episode because we've had hints of sort of Kyrie's self-doubt, but it's definitely coming out a lot stronger here. He is...
Yeah. And like the...
He very much acknowledges the fact that he does kind of suck. He has a lot of self-doubt issues, a lot of issues of selfishness, and he knows about them. He's just not great at actually fixing them. So, you know, I did talk a lot early on about how, you know, Kyrie is pretty much this way. He's very selfish, and he kind of enjoys being a dick to people. But here, it's a little more vulnerable than he was before. Because before he was just making jokes at other people's expenses, and he was just, like, laughing at Kaiichiro, but then he just starts saying Kaiichiro actively be a good person all the time. He's like, I can't really make jokes about that. He is legitimately a better person than me.
Yeah, because, like, really just, like, contrast Kyrie at the beginning of the episode to Kyrie at the midpoint of the episode. Because in the beginning, he thinks he's under Keiichiro's skin. He's like, oh, I got him right where I want him. I'm just going to bully this cop. And then halfway through, Keiichiro totally shows him up without trying.
No, not in the
without
slightest.
wanting to show
That's
him
what
up.
makes it worse for Kyrie.
And when... Yes, and then when Kyrie tries to bring up, like, oh yeah, I'm just being hard on myself because I don't think I'm that good of a person, Keiichiro's like, no, you're a great person. You're definitely a better person than I am. And Kyrie's just like, I swear to God, you need to stop.
Yeah, I actually do like that irony there, though. Just Kaiichiro trying his best to help, but he just says, oh yeah, you know, you were friendly to me. You decided to help me because I was alone. And Kyrie knows full well that he's not doing this out of altruism. He's doing it to keep an eye on Kaiichiro.
I think I've compared the Pot Rangers to Paladins before, and this is actually a problem that DMs run into with Paladins, or Paladin-like classes. There are Paladins in good games, so I don't feel like I'm promoting a bad game by talking about Paladins, but they forget to like actually give advantages to being lawful. Like, you're sticking to the rules that should give you certain powers and help sometimes. But a lot of DMs just like to go like, well, do you stick to the law or do you do something helpful? It's like, well, there's never any good reason to stick with the law because you're not a good DM. But with this, they like this show, and like it's not just a problem with tabletop, but it is a problem pervasive in tabletop because it comes up a lot.
Yep.
But this show could have run into the same problem of like, well, the Pot Rangers uphold the law, but does that mean anything? Does that do anything? And we can see it makes Keiichiro feel a lot better about his life.
Yep. Yeah, I think it does help since, you know, you have one team that can be lawful, and then when the lawful option isn't really going to help, then the Lupin Rangers are there to pick up the slack.
Mm-hmm. As we saw in this episode, actually.
Yep. You have a jet, therefore... you can do the right thing.
If you don't mind, I could talk about something with that, because I've mentioned to you off podcast what happens, or more specifically, what doesn't happen with Trigger Machine Splash.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Trigger Machine Splash is more or less like officially listed as Lupin Ranger Arsenal. And some people are very upset about that, and I cannot really parse their complaints on like a meaningful level. I don't want to be mean, but it always comes down to like, it's a trigger machine, it has the gold S on it, it's clearly supposed to be for the Power Rangers, so why do the Lupin Rangers get it? And my answer is they stole it.
Yeah, exactly, they stole it.
Some people seem to think that like, because this is a trigger machine and it is, Power Ranger design, that this means that the only reason the Lupin Rangers have it is because the writers want to push the Lupin Rangers' popularity at the expense of the Power Rangers. And,
No.
I know Toei's a soulless corporation, but we don't always have to go directly to that. There is a reason in this episode that you watched, right? You watched this episode?
Yeah, I feel like too many people just put too much stock in, in order for the teams to be, equal in importance, they always have to have equal gear in an equal number of episodes.
Yeah, and having seen the rest of the series, I can tell you, if you think the Lupin Rangers steal the show, that's your fault.
Yeah,
they might get more toys to play with, but that only goes so far.
I mean, I sort of get it, because, the Lupin Rangers always get the big flashy victories, but, in this episode, it's very clear that the Pat Rangers got the moral victory, and that is actually legitimately an important thing.
That means something. I would be lying if I said that I didn't want to see Pat Kaiser splash, or if I didn't want to see the Pat Rangers use the KSAT's boost splash. But it's not that big of a deal. I have started collecting the toys now. I can just buy Splash on my own and put it on Pat Kaiser. It's fine. I don't need to see it in the show. But the thing that got to me is that because these people, when they say stuff, they're like, oh, it's clearly supposed to be for the Power Rangers and it didn't go to the Power Rangers. The thing that's upsetting them is that Toei established a rule for the series and then broke that rule. Now here's the thing. This rule is not an in-universe rule. It's not like it said that, the thieves can't use trigger machines or anything like that. This is only a rule that exists in, what do I say? A metafiction, I guess?
Yeah.
It's just what you expect.
Yeah,
breaking rules that you expect is a good thing.
Yeah, that's typically how you get the good marks on the old writings.
In a 40-plus season show like Super Sentai, being formulaic is your death knell. There's a reason a lot of people are disappointed that Ryusoulger is dinosaurs again, because it's the 4th dinosaur show.
Yeah, people are already upset that the show can, sometimes be a bit static, so, for something like this, it's important that they actually play with your expectations.
Way back in episodes 5 and 6, we talked about how the show was messing with expectations and just breaking arbitrary rules for no real, long-term payoff, but just because they could, and that's a good idea.
Yeah.
The example I go to, unfortunately, it's VeggieTales, so bear with me. The creators of VeggieTales have talked a lot about the making of it, and I do appreciate that. I wish more kid show creators talked about their creative process, especially the dumb ones like VeggieTales. But they talked about how in any other Christian entertainment show, everyone would have alliterative names. There would be Tommy Tomato and Kooky Cucumber, and they didn't want to do that because that was bad. And so even though them giving the characters names that aren't alliteration doesn't really affect the show in any meaningful way, the fact that they saw that and went, this is a rule that we should probably break, shows that they were paying attention and thinking.
Yep. So basically, of course the Lupin Rangers got this one, even though aesthetically it is obviously quote-unquote supposed to go to the Pat Rangers. They stole it. And yeah, the Lupin Rangers have a lot more shiny toys, but like, that's the Lupin Rangers, that's their thing. They're very flashy. At the end of the day, as characters, the Pat Rangers are more emotionally mature. So
Right.
this isn't this is even sort of like character development for Kaiichiro, because like it's a big moment for him to just put his pride aside and put his trust in somebody that he's normally fighting against.
Yeah, because back in episodes 5 and 6, we saw that neither Red was willing to back down, really. Ichigo eventually, like, saved that family, but he didn't stop the fight to save that family. The fight just went to the family. In this, he makes the decision of, like, I can't keep doing that. I need to know when enough is enough, and now it's enough. And as we said earlier, Kairi can't do that. He can't let go the way Keiichiro can.
Yeah, so Kaiichiro, whose catchphrase is "Damn you, phantom thieves," trusts a phantom thief. As Kaiichiro is a very good adult, Kaiichiro still very much a teen.
You mean Kairi's still very much a teen?
Did I say Kaiichiro?
Yeah.
Ah.
It happens. It's the worst for me when I do that and then I have to edit myself and I can't fix it in editing. But yeah, oh, I had one more thing I wanted to say about other fans of the show. Yeah, I don't want to make this in just like me beating up on people who dislike certain things of the show, because that's sort of like runs the risk of just becoming the thing I don't like. But again, I guess
other people are watching the show wrong.
Yeah, but it does bother me because we said last episode the show's a financial failure officially. I did some more research. It's apparently the second worst selling toy line in Sentai history.
Which, yeah, you can really tell that there's probably a bit of fatigue on the toy end, because Toei couldn't sell Phantom Thieves. And, like, that's a fairly popular aesthetic in Japan, it seems.
Right, but
worked for Persona.
The thing that we do know is that the ratings for this season went up. They're better than they had been in the past. The show also won a Galaxy Award. I don't know much about the Galaxy Award, but hey, it's an award that it won.
Yep.
So it seems to me, the message I'm getting from this is that the demographics like the show, not the toys. And there could be reasons for that. Maybe the toys just didn't have, like, good enough... It might even come down to just the toys weren't packaged well enough. Like, some people, like, mentioned have theorized that there weren't enough, like, big-ticket items.
Should have brought in Jackpot Striker sooner.
Yeah, because after Good Striker, you have Jackpot Striker, which is, like, a movie exclusive that now goes for way too much money, and I will not be collecting, because I don't hate my wallet that much. But after that, you have X-Emperor, and that's sort of mostly it as far as big ticket items go. Like, some shows will have multiple big robots, and this doesn't. It mainly relies on goodie and things you can attach to them, which means the Good Strikers are, like, really cheap right now. Like, I bought Podkaiser, and it was basically I paid for 3 trigger machines and goodie came free. But yeah, it does bother me that people use the toy line's failure as proof that the show is bad. And it's like, no, that means the toy line is bad. That only proves what it proves. Mm-hmm. And maybe the toy line didn't sell because people didn't like the show, but we have evidence that people liked the show. You might not have liked the show, but, you know, on average, people like this show.
This is pretty good.
So yeah, this is my favorite episode. This is where the series... I don't want to be like, oh yeah, the series really picks up 30 episodes in, because it picks up earlier than that.
Yeah, it's good from the start.
But this is what moved it from, like, entertaining to, like, now I'm emotionally invested. Like, really hardcore in this show. And this was apparently, like, the beginning of the end for a lot of people. And, like, that does bother me on kind of a personal level. It's Like, this is the best part of the show, and you all won't stop whining about it.
The Lupat fan base are bitch-ass motherfuckers.
Come to
They
make
pissed
an
on my
announcement.
favorite episode. That's right, they pissed on my favorite episode.
Oh, honey. But anyways, I don't want to make this Loka complains about other people the episode. Yeah, I have grievances with some of the more vocal members of the Sentai fandom because they wouldn't want me calling them Lupot fans. But yeah, we went into like
Go
the
on.
most of the stuff that we liked. This is great Kairi episode, great Keiichiro episode. And they did a good job actually setting up the Power Rangers as the Superman style superheroes to the Lupin Rangers Batman style.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else because, it was a Kairi Kaiichiro episode. Not many of the other Rangers were involved, Lupin especially.
Mm-hmm.
And as for predictions, I don't really have anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've said multiple times the show doesn't actually lend itself super well to predictions.
Yeah.
They don't do cliffhangers very often, and the ones they do tend to be kind of obvious what's going to happen next.
Yeah, like all the way back at the beginning with the cops entering the restaurant.
Yeah. As great as it would have been for Keiichiro to just pull a gun on Kairi in episode 3. But yeah, looks like that does it for this episode. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at LRVSPR, Fafner is at Fafner Masamune. You can also email us at LupinRecap@PatReview@gmail.com. And we will see you in the next episode.
Adieu.